I'm Father Terrance, and in honor of the first Saturday devotions, we're going to offer a Rosary reflection today. Our Lady asked us to meditate for 15 minutes on the Rosary on First Saturday. So we're going to look at the miracle at the Wedding Feast of Cana, which is the second luminous mystery of the Rosary, which you'll find in John chapter 2. First of all, let's read the passage, and then we will look at some applications for our own life. The passage starts out this way. On the third day there was a marriage at Cana in Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus also was invited to the marriage with his disciples. When the wine failed, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, "O woman, what have you to do with me? My hour has not yet come." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now there were 6 stone jars standing there for the Jewish rites of purification, each holding 20 to 30 gallons. Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the steward of the feast." So they took it. When the steward of the feast tasted the water now become wine and did not know where it came from, for the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward of the feast called the bridegroom and said to him, "Every man serves the good wine first, and when men have drunk freely, then the poor wine. But you have kept the good wine until now." This, the first of his signs, Jesus did at Cana in Galilee, and manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. So what do we see in this passage? Well, a simple reading of it is that we see Our Lady seeing a problem or a difficulty at this event that she's at, the fact that they're running out of wine, they run out of wine at this wedding. What does she do about it? She brings the problem to Jesus and asks him to step in. Some of us, if we were there, the first thing we would do is, when we saw that they run out of wine, is that we would complain or say how irresponsible it was for the head waiter to not foresee this, or maybe how selfish it was for the people to drink the wine so quickly, or how poorly this reflects on the married couple. Boy, how much they must be embarrassed by this. This is so embarrassing for them. So complain, criticize, fault find. Notice that Our Lady doesn't do any of these things, right? She simply sees the need and she looks for a way to help. So first lesson that Our Lady teaches us here: when there's a problem, don't default to complaining or criticizing or fault finding or finger pointing. Look for a way to help. What's another key lesson here from this story at Cana? It's that we can bring difficulties, even concrete, practical problems, we can bring them to Jesus, either directly or through his mother. However, the gospel story actually points us to going through his mother. That's actually part of the point of the story. Bringing the problem or the struggle or the difficulty to her so that then she can do what? Then she can bring it to Jesus. Mary places this concrete problem, this lack of wine, at Jesus' feet. Why? Because she sees the need and she wants to help. That's what mothers do, right? And she uses the leverage that she has over her son's heart to solve the problem. Beautifully, this is exactly what you see painted in the painting of the Porciuncula Indulgence, which was painted by the Spanish artist Murillo in the 17th century. We actually have a copy of it in our parlor room. I'm in our parlor room here right now. Right in front of me is a copy of that famous painting. The painting is called The Vision of St. Francis in the Porciuncula. It's at the Prado Museum in Madrid, Spain. If you want to go visit it there, you can, or otherwise you can visit it online. Go to the Prado Museum. You can actually see the painting there in high definition too. In the painting, you see St. Francis at the bottom part of the painting. He's kneeling at the foot of the altar. He's asking our Lord for the indulgence for the Porciuncula Chapel in Assisi, so that anyone who comes to that chapel on August 2nd of each year, and prays the necessary prayers, they can receive a full pardon for all the temporal punishment due to their sins. Plenary indulgence. Essentially, that's what they would receive. This is what St. Francis's wish was. This is what his prayer was as well. And in the painting, in the upper half of the painting, you see Our Lady turned towards our Lord, and she's actually presenting that request to him. And Jesus grants the request because Our Lady asks on St. Francis's behalf. It's exactly what we see at the Wedding Feast of Cana. Mary brings the need to Jesus, and Jesus does not and cannot refuse his mother. At Cana, Our Lady turns to her son and simply says, "They have no wine." John 2, verse 3. So again, she sees the problem, and in a subtle, delicate, feminine way, she asks Jesus to step in. Now, as a side note for women, most of us men don't pick up on hints as easily as our Lord does, just as an FYI. So if you want us to do something, you probably have to spell it out for us. Maybe not all the time, but probably most of the time. Just kind of keep that in mind for future reference. But for those of you who have been married for more than a month or so, you certainly already realize that problem. You certainly already realize you've got to spell it out for these people. In the episode at Cana, it says in John 2, verse 5, that his mother Mary said to the servants, "Do whatever he," Jesus, "tells you." Do whatever he tells you. We are God's servants, right? Servants are commanded and they are directed to serve. Who commands and directs us? The story at Cana tells us. It's Jesus and Mary. We are called to do what Jesus says, but we are also called to do what Our Lady says as well. The servants listen to both of them. You don't just listen to the king and then ignore the queen. No, you listen to and answer to both of them because they're both in charge. So again, the key lesson here is when I see a problem or a difficulty or a difficult situation, what's the first thing I should do? I should bring it in prayer to Jesus and Mary and ask them to intervene. Believe it or not, God enjoys hearing from us and he enjoys being with us. He absolutely loves it when we invite him to be with us or when we invite him into any kind of situation, when we invite him to be a part of any situation. One of the simple things I remember from childhood was when we were playing at school, like we would play a sport, basketball, for example, and you'd have two captains who'd choose their teammates. It always felt good when you were chosen to be on someone's team. If you were always chosen last, maybe it didn't feel so good, but I was kind of probably chosen in the middle somewhere in the middle there. You know, I'd hear the kids whispering to each other, Carl, basically, choose him, which is my civil name, Carl, with a K. And then the captain would choose me and we'd all slap hands and I'd come over to their side. It was simple, but kind of a sweet and a joyous memory. You know, God always loves it when we choose him. When we turn our attention to him, when we invite him to be with us in this moment and in any moment, actually. It's very similar at the Mass as well. You know, Jesus is much happier to see you at Mass than you are to see him. Plus, and yes, if it's a Sunday Mass or a holy day of obligation and we skip out without a good excuse, that actually hurts him more than we realize. Jesus has a very sensitive and a very tender heart. You know, I have the grace to bring Holy Communion to someone who's very close to our Lord and to Our Lady. And one of these last times that I brought this person communion, you know, when they received our Lord, they asked him if he had a word for them. And Jesus spoke to this person. He actually speaks to them quite frequently, actually. And you know what he said? He said, "I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be here." You think, well, shouldn't I be the one who's saying that? I should be grateful that you're here, right, Lord? I should be the one who's saying that. But no, he says, "I'm so grateful to be here." He loves it when we invite him to be with us, wherever we're at any time of the day. In regards to inviting Jesus and Mary into our difficult situations, even if we're just arguing in our heads or criticizing others internally or criticizing ourselves or complaining about this or that, or we're angry towards this person or about that situation, this situation, invite Jesus and Mary into the middle of that mess. Please invite them. They love being invited into the middle of messes. They're very good at cleaning things. Be like the smart couple that invited them to the wedding in John chapter 2, right? Jesus and Mary know how to bring grace and peace and calm and order and charity and mercy and goodness even into our interior disorder or our interior struggles. Yes, maybe the Cana couple, maybe they didn't have a lot of money, maybe they weren't very good at planning, maybe they didn't have the best head waiter, so didn't always make the best decisions, but they were smart enough to invite Jesus and Mary there. They were smart enough to invite our Lord and Our Lady to the event. This whole episode at Cana shows how a human need or a problematic situation can be turned into a manifestation of God's grace and His glory. And as another side note along those lines, the story of the wedding feast at Cana is also an encouragement for some of us who prefer to avoid big events or social situations, in the sense that, one, if I was there at Cana in Galilee on that day and would have been invited to that wedding and would have turned down the invite because I wanted to read my favorite book instead, or because I wanted to watch football on TV on that day, you know what? I would have missed out on Jesus and Mary's company, one. And two, I maybe would have missed out on being in the presence of Jesus' first miracle. But two, maybe our Lord would have wanted me there so that I could actually help out, like the servants did. Or maybe I could have brought to our Lord or to Our Lady the problem, and then I would have been instrumental in actually helping out with that miracle. Or maybe just my prayers for that situation would have helped in some way. All that being said, there are two types of people in the world. There are those who love social gatherings, and there are those of us who love to avoid social gatherings. Maybe those of us who like to avoid them, maybe we should think twice about shying away from events or activities that we're invited to. At least think twice before we say no. We might actually be the person who brings Jesus and Mary into those situations, maybe reluctantly, right? But we might actually be the person to bring them there if we go. And our attitude should not be, what can I get out of this event or activity, or what's in it for me? Our attitude should be that of Jesus and Mary, the attitude of our Lord and Our Lady. They go to the wedding feast thinking, how can I be of help in this place? How can I be of help to these people? True love always looks to give. Self-centered love always looks to get. It always looks at what's in it for me. What do I get out of this? And that's the attitude that keeps people actually stuck in unhappiness, believe it or not. So when we go somewhere, or when we're invited somewhere to go to some event, we should think to ourselves, I'm going there, or I am here for a reason. You know what the reason is? I'm here to do good. St. Paul says in Galatians 6:10, he says, "Brethren, while we have time, let us do good, especially to those who are of the household of faith," says St. Paul. While we have time, let us do good. That's how St. Francis ends his exhortation to his brothers at the end of his rule. Brothers, while we have time, let us do good. And let's also learn to invite Jesus and Mary more daily into our lives and into our situations, more into the situations, into the activities of the day, into our internal struggles as well, too, more into our thoughts, our worries, our anxieties. Invite them in. They are the best company. They would love it to be there more often with you, but they're not going to be there unless we invite them a lot of times. They're there. Obviously, they're always present to us. Our Lord is always present. So is Our Lady. They're always present. But they actually want us to be present to them, and they want to feel invited. They want to feel welcomed. into our life and into our situations. Let's learn to do that. The more we invite them to be present, the more miracles they will work in us and around us as well. Keep your eyes open, because you'll see miracles. I'm Father Terrance. Ave Maria. Thank you so very much for listening. Please keep me in your prayers, and I will keep you in mine as well. God bless you and take care.